Alright, so hey guys, so yeah, thanks for watching this part. It means you're a supporter on Patreon, so super thanks for supporting. That's appreciated. So yeah, about this this bridge asset. So I made this initially when I was preparing parts of this course when I wasn't really sure what I was gonna do. So I taught a workshop a while ago where I had some stuff prepared, and there was this bridge was part of it, and it was when I was already thinking of what could I do for like a Houdini 101 course, and I ended up doing this thing with the squid, the underwater world, because it covers a lot of the super cool introductory stuff that I wanted to cover. But in the meantime, I had also made something with this bridge because it also covers a lot of the same subjects, just in a different way. That's why I thought it would be interesting to do like an exclusive tutorial to go over all of these subjects that we already discussed, but in a different way. So you can see how they're used if you're gonna do something like model a procedural bridge, which is, I guess, is gonna come super in handy for whatever, like probably for like stuff like game design or something like that. So yeah, let's do it the same that we did with the seaweed and with the squid. Let's just make an empty geometry node and let's sort of try to build it from scratch. And then yeah, so let's do that. So let's make an empty geometry node and call it bridge tutorial. And I kind of challenge you, by the way, to maybe try this for yourself first. Try to see how far you can get making this bridge yourself, so with all of these controls, and then watch the rest of this. So pause the thing, try to see how far you can get, and then watch the rest of this tutorial, because you should theoretically already know how to do most of all of the stuff that we're going to do. So again, this tutorial is more to deepen sort of your knowledge of all of these things, and it is gonna cover some stuff like for each loop a little bit more in depth than we did with the squid. So try it for yourself. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to pause the video, and you didn't pause, so let's continue. All right, so have a look in the bridge, and let's see how we did it. So it was a while ago that I made this thing. So again, similar to like what we did with the squid, let's start off with just a line, and let's put it in the Z direction. See that? Let's make it 30 meters long, just like it is over here. So then what we're doing, just like what we've been doing so far, is we're gonna add a curve view attribute to it. So curve view. So again, that's gonna generate an attribute across the whole thing from 0 to 1, which will allow us to start doing some stuff on here. And over here, I had generated a UV attribute, which is another way to how you can, for example, create something like a UV attribute yourself. So there's actually a curve view attribute yourself. So there's actually multiple ways we could get this attribute. So because we've been using curve view, but let me show you two other ways that you could also potentially generate the same attribute. So one would be to do a UV texture. Again, you don't necessarily need to do this, but just to iterate, to show how this data flow works, and you can use it in other ways as well. So what there's also so we can put this texture type on the UV texture to arc length from spline, and that will, and I put it to point, and we'll put a UV attribute across the curve, but it's only just one curve, so it cannot really have anything on the Y and Z component, so we'll only have it on the X component. But as you can see, it's also going from 0 to 1. So very similar like we had in the other like in the when we do the resample. So if we were to do a attribute wrangle, we could say that curve u equals, then we get a curve u attribute going from 0 to 1. And another way to do this, by the way, so there's even more ways to do this. So what we could do is, let's do this in a wrangle. This is going to be a little bit more mathematical. So we have this line, and this has a specific amount of points. So what could we do? We could take the point number maybe, and then divide it by the total number of points. Maybe let's try and see what that does. So maybe f at curve u equals, and let's say that we want to make a float from ptnum, and then divide it by the float from the numpt, because it needs to be a float. All right. So let's see what that does. And then we have an attribute as well, going from 0 to not quite 1. It's because the point number starts at 0, remember? So it's not completely like what we want. So we need to subtract 1, by the way. So subtract 1. Now we get a 0 to 1 value. And why I'm not using just ptnum divide. So let's say if I were to try f at curve u equals at ptnum divided by at numpt. So the ptnum stands for the point number and numpt is the number of points. So if I were to do this, you see everything evaluates to 0. So why is that? That's because the point number is an integer. Remember when we discussed the difference between floats and integers? So integers don't have decimal values. So these are both integers. So you cannot divide an integer by an integer. It's just gonna, well, remain an integer. So it's just gonna evaluate to 0. So that's why we're calling it to be a float first. So we're gonna convert it from an integer to a float, and then we can divide it. So multiple ways to do this. And one more thing. So the curve u thing here is actually quite nice, because this doesn't work if you have it on if you have multiple lines. So let's say if we were to copy this line, so let's say we do copy a couple of copies. So now we have a couple of copies. If I do it now, it's gonna do this whole thing across the whole thing. So we still have 0 to 1. It's gonna go from 0, so all across things to 1. So that doesn't work. So then what you need to do is for each connected piece, and you'd need to do this inside of a for each loop. And then it is going to work. But again, it's not really, this is going to be slower. If you have a lot of stuff going on, then it's going to be slow, because for each loop is going to do this. It's going to, go do this for each of the things. It's not going to be super fast. So it's just to show that there's multiple ways to do this. And by the way, so another thing you might have noticed down here, this yellow block, which we're going to use later, but I can already explain sort of what it does. So this thing, this for each loop, is single threaded. Means it can only run on one core. So it's not gonna properly multi-thread. So what the thing down here does is a compile block. So what a compile block does is it allows certain nodes inside of Houdini to be compiled. So then you can multi-thread them. So that's compile block. Let's put down a compile block. Let's put it like over there. And then put a compile end. And then we can put that for each, you can say multi-thread when compiled. So now it will be multi-threaded. So you're not going to see that much of a difference right now, but maybe I can show you how you can, that it can actually make quite a bit of difference in some scenarios. So maybe let's say that we want to do 1000 copies. Let's put this to manual update. So let's take for each and not compile it. And let's give our line a lot more points. Let's see how many points it's going to get. 600, let's do 3000, maybe a little bit too much. Let's do it like this. Yeah, okay, 1000 points. That's looking good. Right, so you have something called a performance monitor in Houdini. So there's the performance monitor. This will allow us to record how long something takes to cook. So let's press record, and then let's highlight the end of the for each here. And this was still super fast, so it's probably not gonna show a lot of difference. But we can see. Let's see. Okay, we need probably a better example for something like this. Let me think if I could come up with a better example for the for each. Well, maybe we can still see if it makes actual difference. Maybe let's try it on the compiled one. In this case, it actually took longer to cook, so it was a pretty terrible example. All right, let's try another one. Let's maybe try let's do a pig to show what a compile block can do. Right, let's copy it. Copy and transform. Let's move it up. Let's make a whole bunch of copies. Let's make 100 copies. Now we have a whole bunch of pigs. And let's make a VDB from polygons. From the pig. And you remember making VDBs is quite slow generally. So let's make it something like this. All right, so this is still quite fast. Let's say we want to do this in a for each loop, and I'm going to maybe do copies because I'm kind of worried it's going to take super long. Right, let's do a for each loop for each connected piece. And let's put a VDB from polygons down there. So let's first highlight this and then put this there. Now let's turn on the performance monitor. And let's see how long it's going to take. Put this to auto cook. Right, so it took 600 milliseconds. Not so bad. Let's up the resolution. We can do better than that. We can make it slow. Let's put manual. Up the resolution on this thing. 0.15. Let's do performance monitor. Let's cook. 1.28 seconds. All right. So already took a little bit longer. Maybe let's crank it up even more so we can see a very big difference when we start actually compiling this. Right, let's cook. And I can see it's taking quite a long time. Right, it took 4.38 seconds to get all these things as VDBs. All right, now let's try this inside of a compile block. Let me put this to manual. And let's put a compile block. Put it over there. Put it over there. So remember, 4.38 seconds. Put this thing to multi-thread when compiled. And let's see how big of a difference it's going to make. So let's put it performance monitor. Let's clear this. And let's record. 3.72. So you can see it was quite a bit faster. So in this case, not too much faster, but this can potentially make a very big difference. So just something I wanted to get off the way, because compile blocks are really cool. Not every node is supported inside of a compile block, by the way. So sometimes it might error when you're going to try this. Sometimes it will error out, and then because some of the nodes are not supported. So just something I wanted to show that like you can do compiling on for each loops, which is quite cool. So just so you know. So we kind of got away from the subject a little bit. Wait, by the way, let me keep this for the source files maybe. So you can actually download this, might be nice. So I'm gonna put this whole stuff in a subnetwork. Go. So it will still be in the download whenever you download this. So cloud tutorial file. Right. So we got a little bit away from the subject, but I mean, this is an extra course, right? So we don't need to be super to the point. We can just, yeah, like make it a long one and teach you a whole bunch of cool stuff. So if you want to know more about these compile blocks, they have a whole master about them. So Houdini 16 masterclass compiled SOPs. So each release of Houdini, they're adding more compilable nodes. So I recommend checking that out. I will put the link to this also somewhere on this page. So yeah, but anyway, we got a little bit away from the point. So let's, I guess, just continue with whatever we were doing. So let's continue making the bridge.